Dear students, we have been discussing political theory. So far, we have completed 2 units. In the first unit, we had a discussion on what is theory and what is political theory, its nature, its scope, its significance, and also a debate on political theory. In the second unit, that is third unit, uh, we discussed about the concepts of liberty, equality, and justice from the point of view of liberalism, Marxism, and feminism. And today's topic is, actually, it is a second unit of your first semester syllabus. The the main heading of the second unit reads political. So under this unit, you will learn about the theories of origin of the state, power and authority. These are the important topics you will learn. Before going to learn about the origin of theories of origin of state, there are so many theories of origin of state. Here you have to understand origin of the state means how state has come into existence. And about its origin, there have been many theories. Some theories say it is God, because of God, state has come into existence. Some people say it is because of the contract that people entered among themselves is the reason for the birth of the state. And some people say its origin can be traced to the evolution of the origin of the political institution. How in ancient societies people used to rule themselves, and in medieval period how they used to rule themselves. What was the change that happened from ancient period to medieval period, and then from medieval period to modern period. And there are of course different phases of the origin of state. All those origin, all those the speculations about the evolution of origin of the state is known as evolutionary theory of origin of state. That means state originated not in one epoch or one era. It has been evolving, and now what it is the result of so much of historical process that took place during ancient, medieval, and modern period. So that is called evolutionary theory of origin of state. Before going into the details of the different theories of origin of state, we have to understand the state, the concept of state, because it's very important. If you know, if you are the students of political theory, in political theory the most important element, the most important concept is the state. What is state? Because state is a political institution. uh, we have to know about state, what, how it has been defined, and we try to define it, and also we try to understand out of those definitions the essential features of state. The concept of state is very important. Now let us try to understand the concept of state, how it has come into being. um, Now, yes, as I said, there are theories of origin of the state. There are so many theories of origin of the state. Before knowing that, let us have an in-depth understanding of the concept of the state. The state is the most powerful, a significant, and highest political institution among all institutions. In a society, state occupies prominent position and highest political position because it directs all other institutions. Every institution has to oblige the laws or the rules and regulations made by the state. So, state is the most highest political institution among all other institutions. uh, the state, how the word state uh, is originated. It was Machiavelli, the 16th century political philosopher from Italy. uh, he wrote a book called The Prince, and in that Prince he used the term, used this word state for the first time in 16th century in modern sense. Of course, there might have been the existence of the state, that is collective organization of a community in particular society in different forms. But the word that gives an impression of collective entity of a of a society was state, the word state. It was he who used this word in the book The Prince. And you must be knowing that Machiavelli is the first modern political thinker. He was the first thinker who separated the influence of religion and other norms or ethics from politics. He said politics, the activity of politics is so important that even religion and ethics can be utilized for the protection and expansion of the state by the prince. That is what Machiavelli said. Uh, then Aristotle said the state comes into existence originating into the basic needs of life and continuing to assist for the sake of good life. So we have to understand state has come into existence not just to satisfy the needs of human beings. Its ultimate aim is to make that human being a good citizen, to provide him the good life through transforming the citizen into a good citizen. So this was the noble idea that Aristotle had about the purpose of the state and origin of the state. And let us have a look at different definitions provided by different political thinkers, including ancient Indian political thinkers. The most famous ancient Indian one of the most famous ancient Indian political thinkers was Cowtilia, who wrote the book called Arthashastra, in which he defines state as having seven organs, but modern state contains only four organs. This was the earlier idea that was propounded by ancient Indian political thinkers. The state, the seven organs, included the king, the territory and people, council of ministers, fort, structure. In those days, structure, the fortified structure where king lives was very important, because it used to protect the state from the invasion of other states. So it was very important. And treasure, army and ally, friendship. Friend is also one of the friend, or ally was considered to be one of the organs of the state in those days, in earlier period. Uh, and let us have a look at the modern definitions. The Woodrow Wilson defines state is a people organized for law within a definite territory. So state, state's main function is making laws, because it has to regulate the society and the behavior of the human being, and within a definite territory. So not the state is having a definite territory. Then Blanchley defines state is politically organized people of a definite territory. Here we have to understand, politically organized people. People, establishing a kind of political system, which, to which everybody obliges, and politically organized. They establish a system of a government like thing, and within a definite territory. So this is a very important definition. So when we think of state, we should keep in mind it is a kind of politically organized people of a definite territory. So that concept, that idea should be kept in mind. And H.J. Lasky defines state is territorial society divided into government and subjects, claiming within its allotted physical area a supremacy over all other institutions. This is very important. The people, population, or uh, the subjects here means, people. People who constitute to be a community or a society have their own, a collective entity to rule themselves. That collective entity will have supremacy over all other institutions, including all human beings. So this is the definition of H.J. Lasky. Now, when we looked at the definitions that have been mentioned above, it shows there are certain fundamental features of a state. Let us identify the fundamental features of the state that have been mentioned in the above definitions that we have now discussed. uh, the essential features of the state. These features were found from the definitions that have been discussed just now. Uh, Population, the population, territory, government, sovereignty, and of course international recognition. This is a modern future which is not essential, but it is essential, but it is not necessary. Without international recognition, if an entity is having the above four features like population, territory, and sovereignty, then it can be considered as a state. Now, population. The first important element, the first important essential feature of state is population means the permanent settled people in the definite territory. So that make the population of a territory. So here, how many people should be there? That's the next question. What is the number of people required to make the population into a state? See, Plato said in his ideal state, it should be 5,040 people. So he gave that number to make his state an ideal one. And Aristotle said it should not be neither too big nor too small. A state requires the required number of population. Uh, and also Rousseau, who propounded the concept of general will, because general will is identified with a kind of constant enumeration, or constantly identifying the the larger good. So there should not be larger good which is permanent. It should be identified by the people who always take active part, and they should decide every now and then what is collective good. To decide the collective good, the state required, he felt, uh, something like 10,000 people. So that is what the ideal number they suggested. But modern state doesn't have any limitation. There are the states with the population in thousands. There are states with population in crores, in lakhs. So there is no definite number, uh, the number of population, that is required. So it is the nature of the people which make the state, a qualitative state, a powerful state. So people, if people in the state are, more hardworking, then the state will develop and will have larger and more influence around the committee of the nations, in the committee of the nations. So that is how we look at the population, which is one of the essential features of a state. Then territory, it is the basis of a state. Territory, without territory, uh, earlier there used to be states without territories, but in the modern period, without state, without territory, you can't have a state. It is the basis of a state. Now we can talk about, an example. Modern Israel. Earlier, before 1948, there was no state called Israel. The Jews, were settled in different parts of the world, in different countries, in different states, and they had an ideal view of their state, and they had an imagination. They had an ideal imagination that there they belong to a particular place called, Israel, and all the people from different parts of the world came together and established a place having certain territory that is called Israel in 1948. Then they started, being called as a state, Israel state. So uh, this is how, the territory is the basis of a state. Here, yeah, we should understand that territory means just, it is, physical future. It contains, in the air, that is in the sky, and also in the waters. So the boundary is not just on the land. The boundary, every state will have boundary on the territory, on the physical territory, physical land, and also above the sky to certain height, and also to certain distance in the water, in the sea. So every state, contains boundaries. That boundary, the territory, may be land, and also sky, and also waters. So this is how the we should understand the territory, which is basis of a state. Then government, this is a very important element of one of the most important elements of the state, because it provides a form, uh, it provides form to shape, to the form, to the shapeless idea of state. So it provides form to the shapeless. State means what? It is an abstract idea. It is an abstract idea, but that shapeless idea gets a form of shape in the form of government. So people think that government and the state are one and the same, but in political science they are not one and the same. There is a clear-cut difference. Here, government is shows, limited number of people, those who are having some kind of authority, who rule or who maintain the state. The ideals or the ambition of the state is, designed, is made into a law, and that law is implemented by the government. And government changes. Government shows limited number of people, whereas state shows all the people residing in its territory. So that is the difference. Here, the government shows the number of people, a limited number of people having certain power, certain authority, or having certain a kind of authority. So government contains three organs. Every government contains, three organs: executive, legislature, and judiciary. Here, you know Legislature legislature is the main one of the main organs of the state, which contains the representatives of the people, where legislature is a body where the representatives of the people assemble and discuss, make laws for the entire population, for the entire territory. So that is what is the legislature. And the laws made by the legislature are implemented by an executive. Either that executive comes from the legislature, or that executive is elected directly by the people. So you have two kinds of executives. One is presidential executive and legislative executive or parliamentary executive. So and another one, judiciary. It is the judiciary which interprets the laws made by the legislature, and everybody obliges that law. If anybody transgresses or ignores the law, he will be punished. And the disputes among the people are also settled by the judiciary. If people commit crime, they will be punished. They will be awarded the amount of punishment by the body called judiciary. So this is how these three organs make a government. And finally, so we should understand the importance of the government and sovereignty. This is very important concept, and the most important element of uh, of a state, because it is an exclusive character of a state. This sovereignty is the no it is an exclusive character of a state. No other association, no group in a territory will have this future. uh, and it is the supreme authority. The state supreme authority is called sovereignty. It is most essential element, because it gives exclusive character to the state. The supreme authority should be understood in two ways. Within the territory, the state will be having the supreme authority, highest authority, and outside the state, um, it is having independence, so it can act independently. In the committee of the nations, it will act independently. So sovereignty gives two meanings. One is supreme authority within the territory, over the people, over the organizations, over the groups, over all other institutions. And it also gives the meaning of independence. It acts independently in the external affairs. So externally it is independent, internally it is supreme. That is how we should understand. And sovereignty is the exclusive character of the state. So it means supreme authority. So that is how we should understand sovereignty. We have discussed four essential elements: a population, a territory, a government, and sovereignty. These four are the essential features of a modern state. And modern state also contains another important feature. This is an additional feature. In the modern world, if a state is born, then it has to be recognized by other states, so that it can have no relationship with those states, and it can trade with those states. So for that, it requires to be recognized. This is a modern future. It is essential but not necessary. Even though international recognition is not there, if four elements are there, just which we have just now discussed, then it is called as a state. So that is how we should understand the concept of state. So far we have learned what is state, definitions given by different scholars, political scientists, and essential features of a state. Because this understanding is very important. Before we are going to have discussion about the theories of origin of state, it is essential to understand the concept of state, because the concept of state is basic theme that runs throughout the political theory. That is why we should understand the concept of state. Okay, thank you.